Hey there, guys. Back with another brand new episode of Pride and Prejudice. Now we're heading to chapter 10. The day passed much as the day before had done. Mr. Hurst and Miss Bingley had spent some hours of the morning with the invalid, who continued thought slowly to mend. And in the evening, Elizabeth joined their party in the drawing-room. The long table, however, did not appear. Mr. Darcy was waiting, and Miss Bingley, seated near him, was watching the progress of his letter, and repeatedly calling off his attention by messages to his sister. While Mr. Hurst and Mr. Bingley were at piquet, and Mr. Hurst was observing their game, Elizabeth took up some needlework, and was sufficiently amused in attending to what passed between Darcy and his companion. The perpetual commendations of the lady, either on his handwriting or on the evenness of his lines, or on the length of his letter, with the perfect unconcern with which her praises were received, formed a curious dialogue, and was exactly in unison with her opinion of each. How delighted Miss Darcy will be to receive such a letter. He made no answer. You write uncommonly fast. You are mistaken. I write rather slow. How many letters you have occasion to write in the course of the year? Letters of business too. How odious should think them. It is fortunate, then, that they fall to my lot instead of to yours. Pray tell your sister that I long to see her. I have already told her so once, by your desire. I am afraid you don't like your pen. Let me mend it for you. I mend pens remarkably well. Thank you, but I always meant my own. How can you contrive to write so even? He was silent. Tell your sister I'm delighted to hear of her improvements on the harp, and pray her know that I'm quite in raptures with her beauty little design for a table, and I think it is indefinitely superior to Miss Grantley's. Will you give me a leave to defer your raptures till I write again? At present, I had not room to do them justice. Oh, it is of no consequence. I shall see her in January. But do you always write such charming long letters to her, Mr. Darcy? They are generally long. But whether always charming, it is not for me to determine. It is a rule with me that a person who can write a long letter with ease cannot write ill. That would not do for a compliment to Darcy, Caroline, cried her brother, because he doesn't write with ease. He studies too much for words of 4 syllables. Don't you, Darcy? My style of writing is very different from yours. Oh, cried Miss Bingley, Charles writes in the most careless way imaginable. He leaves out half his words and blots the rest. My ideas flow so rapidly that I have no time to express them, by which means my letters sometimes convey no ideas at all to my correspondent. Your humanity, Mr. Bentley, said Elizabeth, must disarm reproof. Nothing is more deceitful, said Darcy, than the appearance of humanity. It is often only carelessness of opinion, and sometimes an indirect boast. And which of the two do you call my little recent piece of modesty? The indirect boast, for you are really proud of your defects in writing because you consider them as proceeding from a rapidity of thoughts and carelessness of execution, which, if not estimable, you think at least highly interesting. The power of doing anything with quickness is always much prized by the possessor, and often without any attention to the imperfection of the performance. When you told Mr. Bentley this morning that if you ever resolved on quitting Netherfield, you should be gone in 5 minutes, you meant it to be a sort of panegyric of compliment to yourself. And yet, what is there so very laudable in a perceptance which must leave the very necessary business undone, and can be of no real advantage to yourself or anyone else? Nay, cried Bentley, this is too much. To remember at nights all the foolish things that were said in the morning, and yet upon my honor I believe what I said to myself to be true, and I believe it at this moment, at least therefore I did not assume the character of needless the perceptions, merely to show off before the ladies. I dare say you believe it, but I am by no means convinced that you would be gone with such celerity. Your conduct would be quite as dependent on chance as that of any man I know. And if, as you were mounting your horse, a friend were to say, Bentley, you had better stay till next week, you would probably do it. You would probably not go, and another word might stay a month. You have only proved by this, cried Elizabeth, that Mr. Bentley did not do justice to his own disposition. You have shown him off now much more than he did himself. I am excessively gratified, said Bingley, by your converting what my friend says in a compliment on the sweetness of my temper. But I am afraid you are giving it a turn which the gentleman did not by no means intend, for he would certainly think the better of me if under such a circumstance I were to give a flat denial and right off as fast as I could. Would Mr. Darcy then consider the rashness of your original intention as atoned for by your obstinacy in adhering to it? Upon my word, I cannot exactly explain the matter. Darcy must speak for himself. You expect me to account for opinions which you choose to call mine, but which I have never acknowledged, allowing the case, however, to stand according to your representation. You must remember, Mr. Bennet, that the friend who is supposed to desire his return to the house and the delay of his plan has merely desired it, as without offering one argument in favor of its property. To yield readily, easily to the persuasion of a friend is no merit with it. To yell without conviction is no complement to the understanding of either. You are paid to me, Mr. Darcy, to allow nothing for the influence of friendship and affection. A regret for the requester would often make one readily yield to a request without waiting for argument to reason one into it. I am not particularly speaking of such a case as you have supposed about Mr. Bingley. We may as well wait perhaps till the circumstance occurs before we discuss the discretion of his behavior thereupon. But in general and ordinary cases between friend and friend, where one of them is desired by the other to change a resolution of no very good moment, should you think ill of that person for complying with the desire without waiting to be argued into it? Will it not be advisable before we proceed on this subject to arrange with rather more precision the degree of importance which is to appertain to this request, as well as the degree of intimacy subsisting between the parties? By all means, cried Bingley, let us hear all the particulars, not forgetting their comparative height and size, for that will have more weight in the argument, Miss Bingley's, than you may be aware of. I'd assure you that if Darcy were not such a great tall fellow in comparison with myself, I should not pay him half so much difference. I declare I don't know a more awful object than Darcy, on particular occasions and in particular places. At his own house especially, and of a sunny evening when he has nothing to do. Mr. Darcy smiled, but Elizabeth thought she could perceive that he was rather offended, and therefore checked her laugh. Mrs. Bingley warmly resented the indignity he had received in an expostulation with her brother for talking such nonsense. That's all for today's show. Please drop a like, comment, subscribe to my channel. And as always, is the best way to support me. We will be continuing with tomorrow for Pride and Prejudice, Chapter 10, Part 2. Stay tuned, and bye.